Hey guys, it's Friday, so I'm back for Free App Fridays. So I'm gonna wrap up the week of free EQs, and I think that's about it. I'm gonna try and get through this video really quickly. Just a reminder, our release schedule is Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I talk about free apps, mainly plugins, free apps. Soon I'll talk about some free DAWs, but free plugins. So wrapping up the week of free EQs. So here we go. So the free app for this Friday is we have a couple here. So we have Luftikus from IKJB, which I talked about that developer on Wednesday. We have MEQ from 1208 Audio Plugins. We have Equilibre from Audio Technique, and we have what is this? PTeq from Ignite Amps, and last but not least is Boot EQ Mark II from Variety of Sound. So let's first look at Luftikus. So this is one of my favorites. I use this mainly for mastering because of how gentle it is. It's very subtle, but it's very effective. It's weird because it can be very drastic, but for the most part it's very subtle, and a lot of the features really lends itself to mastering for my purposes. So we have here fixed points as far as where your frequency ranges are, so you can't change them. And that's one of the things why I like it for mastering. So you got the 10K hertz range, we have 40 hertz, 160, 640, we have 2.5K, and then we have this area right here, which is the high boost, but there are some variables. So you can have it off, you could have it at the 2K range, 5K range, 10K, 20K, and the special thing is that it can go to 40K. Technically, as humans, we can't hear past 20K. We can't hear that high, but it's here, and it kind of helps because it's a shelf, so some of the frequencies below that gets boosted also, so it can give you a subtle boost in your highs, so you're not overdoing it on the highs. You just get like a nice little subtle shimmer on the top. So that's something to check out. Down here we have these switches. So we have a switch to switch it from regular mode, where the dials are very smooth, and when you switch it to master mode, you have these stops. So you have essentially like clicks, preset points, and the numbering system changes at the bottom here under each dial. So after that we have analog mode, where it's going to be doing some analog emulation, and it adds a little bit of analog, kind of like tape noise. So depending on if you want that or not, that's there. It can be subtle, but in a master chain, depending on where you use it, it can get really not that subtle. Hold on for a second. Let me just double check and make sure that I'm still streaming. It seems like I am. I think I am. Anywho, so right here now we have keep gain, which is basically gain compensation. So you can have the plugin do the gain compensation for you, so you're not experiencing any boost or any loss in volume based on the EQ choices that you make. It's maintaining the same input level that's coming in. Or you could turn it off and just deal with the trim knob yourself. So you have those options there. So it's a pretty flexible EQ, and this is Luftikus. One thing to note is, and it's important as I go into the next one, this is an emulation of a very popular legendary hardware EQ called the Mag EQ. That's the Mag EQ. So this one is also similarly an emulation of the Mag EQ. So you know the color scheme is pretty similar. So you have the same frequency ranges, 10, 40, 160, 250 hertz respectively. Then you have the 2.5K, and then you have this high range. Now over here, it has this, and it just says high boost. I don't know for sure what all this is. I'm assuming it's the same as Luftikus, more or less, but you'd have to read the manual for that. I wasn't gonna do that. This one, I think there are these two frequency bands right here. I think they are disabled in the free version. So I just wanted to mention it because it's there. I would rather just go with Luftikus because there are some limitations to this. And Luftikus has a little bit more features and controls that helps. So that's that. All right, moving right along, we have Equilibre. Now with Equilibre, it has quite a bit going on. Let me just go through like the notable things that I jotted down. So you can mute and solo each band. There is stereo, mid, or side processing on each band. You have the ability to do A/B comparisons, so you can set up two different sets of settings and do an A/B comparison. There's an input level knob, there's a saturation knob, and it has a frequency analyzer. So pretty straightforward layout. As you can see, right here, you would select your frequency. This is your Q factor for that frequency. And they have everything color coded by the frequency ranges, so you kind of know which node you're on. So right now I'm moving this green one. Right here I can change if I'm processing the stereo, left or right, mid or side. So that's how you would select that per band, and that's your frequency bandwidth. If you hover, I think if you use like shift or control, you'll get some fine-tuned controlling with your movement, and you can lock positions as far as, yeah, so shift does the fine-tune control. What does alt do? I think alt is doing nothing. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Right here you can solo or mute a band. There's your saturation slider right there. You can turn on and switch the type of graph you're getting for the spectrum analyzer. Here's your input gain. Here's your AB. And that's pretty much it. That's Equilibre. It's pretty nifty. It'd be cool if the interface was resizable, but I do not think it is. So that's pretty much it. Equilibre. Check that one out. It's a fairly old EQ, but it has a good sound to it. Next up, we have the PTeq from Ignite Amps. So with the PTeq, once you see it, if you're familiar with EQs, you'll realize it is emulating, because of the look, it's trying to emulate the PTeq EQ, which is another pretty iconic hardware device, hardware EQ. It gives you 3 different modes. So this is one of the more familiar modes. Up here, you can just turn it off or turn it on to use just this mode. And if you're familiar with the PTeq EQ, it's usually where you have just 2 bands or just 1 band, but 2 bands to just do very basic moves, just like how you have it in the middle here. You can just boost or attenuate, or you can do both, which can do some interesting things at times. And you have low frequency controls over here, and your Q control right here for this middle section. So you can play around with that and just see what it does. The PTeq EQ is always a good style EQ to have around when you're working, whether you're mixing or you're doing some sound design. Down here, we notice that it has 64-bit processing. There is oversampling, 2x oversampling. You can turn that on. And we have routing. It can do stereo, mono. That's about it. Got your input levels, output levels to do your gain compensation, and that's pretty much it. So definitely check that one out. The link for all these plugins are in the description. As always. So lastly, we have boot EQ. Now I've been using this EQ for a long time. The interface does look outdated, of course, because it is old, but this EQ still has a very good sound. It functions well. It's not CPU intensive, and it has some pretty decent tools. Pretty straightforward, kind of like a bus EQ style. So you have your Q here, your high frequency selection to select your frequency range. No, this is actually the gain for the high frequency. So the high frequency range is pretty much already selected. And this is the Q factor for that. In the mid, you can select your mid frequencies within this range. And then you have your gain settings for the high mids. Right here is your mids. So this is the high mids, this is the mids, and then this is your low frequency area. So we got the two knobs here for the mid frequency, and you can select your band curve if you want a peak or a bell curve right here. And then you got your frequency selection, your frequency gain selection, and over here now you have, if you can switch this to low pass, and you have the bell curve right here. And you have your frequency cutoff range, and then you have your gain for your low frequency. And then you can actually turn this off, which is like the whole EQ section. Over here, they give you some drive functionality that's very subtle. You know, it's from its time, so it's not going to be drastic, which is still good because you don't want your drive functions to be too much. You want it to be subtle but effective. So I've used this on vocals before. It's actually pretty good, pretty soothing on the vocals, and it has a very specific tone to it though. It does have character, very subtle, but it does have character. So you can turn the tube on, and then you can affect how much you drive the tube with the drive knob right here. They have two different algorithmic modes for the tube processing, vintage and modern. And right here you still have another low frequency I guess filter, low frequency filter, and it might be more focused towards how you're processing the saturation. So less on the low end, more on the high end. And then finally you have your output knob. So that's pretty much it, guys. Those 5 EQs is what I have for you today. So definitely check them out. On Monday, I will be back. And I have a very, not to say very special, but I have something that, you know, you definitely want to check out for Monday. It's a thing that I just discovered. I'm sure it's been around for a while, but I just discovered it. And I was kind of surprised because I've never seen it before. And the company has like a bunch of different tools, so I might be going through them these are sound generators. So one of them is a rompler. They have different forms of romplers. So there's like a piano rompler. There's one that has like a lot of orchestra sounds and some other synth sounds. They have one that's just synth. So Monday I'll probably start with maybe the orchestra one and kind of go through it. It was a little funky getting it set up, so maybe all of next week I'll probably go through some of their products, and then between Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday I'll talk a little bit about more in depth about how to set them up and just how it all works. But it was pretty cool. It kind of took up my day, I think, on Tuesday, because I wasn't expecting. I was in the middle of building a beat and I needed a sound, and there was something that was crashing my project, but that's a whole nother conversation. So I had to switch the specific library to a different player. So I was kind of researching that because I realized what was causing the crash. It was a well-known problem, and they were like, hey, use this to play this library instead of that. And I stumbled upon this rompler that was able to play the sound that I needed, and they had a whole set of other stuff. So it kind of opened up a new world for me as far as just another resource for different types of romplers. So I was able to add more sounds to my tool set with this company's products. So next week I'll definitely dive into that and go through it. So stay tuned for that. Check back on Monday. And next week we are definitely starting the series on your CPU specs, your computer specs, I should say, and how it pertains to your music production. So first we're starting with CPUs. I'm going to explain what a CPU is, what's out there right now, and how it works together with your DAW and your computer, and what advantages it gives you based on the level of CPU you have and how many CPUs you have. We'll talk about CPU cores and clock speeds and all that weird technical stuff. So if you're interested, definitely check back for that. But until then, guys, I will see you, or well, you will see me in the next video. Bye, guys.